Before we begin, I have just one request. Put on your headphones, turn off the lights, and let the world outside fade away. Because some stories aren't just meant to be heard, they're meant to be felt. Every whisper, every breath, every sound behind you might not be just in the story. So, are you ready? Let's begin. The warm glow of the hallway nightlight painted long shadows across the carpeted floor as Jonathan crept toward his son's bedroom. It was late, past 10 p.m., and after a long day at the office, all he wanted was to collapse into bed beside his wife and forget about spreadsheets, meetings, and looming deadlines. But there was a ritual to be honored. Every night for the past year, Jonathan made a point to say goodnight to his son, David. The boy was only 7, but fiercely attached to the tradition. If he didn't get his nightly tuck in and hug, there would be nightmares, sometimes even tears. And neither Jonathan nor his wife could handle another 2 a.m. meltdown. So he pushed the door open gently, expecting to find his son already curled up in his favorite Star Wars blanket, half asleep, waiting. What greeted him instead made him stop just inside the door. David was already under the covers, all right? His body lay still, perfectly still. Only his face, illuminated faintly by the dim blue glow of a nearby nightlight, looked at him with a wide grin. Too wide. Jonathan frowned. You okay, buddy? David's head didn't move, but his eyes tracked him as he stepped closer. That grin didn't fade. It stretched from ear to ear, teeth glistening as though he hadn't blinked in minutes. The boy nodded slowly and spoke. Daddy, check for monsters under my bed. Jonathan blinked, then chuckled nervously. Still afraid of monsters, huh? David didn't respond. Jonathan crouched down to humor him. The floor creaked under his knees as he bent over, expecting to find nothing but dust bunnies and maybe a few forgotten toys. Instead, his blood ran cold. There, under the bed, was David. Another David. This one's face was pale, almost translucent, and streaked with silent tears. His lips quivered. His eyes were wide with terror, locked on his father's. He raised a trembling finger to his lips and whispered, barely audible, Daddy, there's someone on my bed. Jonathan jerked back, slamming his head on the edge of the bed frame with a loud thud. Pain exploded through his skull, but it was nothing compared to the icy fear that clenched his spine. He scrambled to his feet and staggered backward. The thing on the bed, the grinning thing, was sitting up now, still smiling, watching. David? Jonathan croaked. The boy cocked his head to the side, his smile never faltering. Daddy, did you find the monster? Jonathan didn't reply. He reached down again and lifted the bedskirt. Nothing. The space was empty. No pale child, no whispering voice, just darkness. But he had seen it, heard it. He staggered back, heart pounding. Good night, Daddy, the boy said, slipping back beneath the covers with that same awful smile. Jonathan backed out of the room slowly, his hands shaking. He didn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those terrified eyes beneath the bed, begging for help. Every time he opened them, he remembered that other smile. Wide. Hungry. Over the next few days, Jonathan tried to dismiss the memory as exhaustion. A hallucination, perhaps. A trick of the light combined with the stress of work and lack of sleep. That had to be it. But David changed, subtly at first. He still played with his toys, still ate his cereal, still laughed at cartoons. But his laugh wasn't quite right. It came too quickly, too loud, as if mimicked. He stopped hugging his mother goodnight. He began staring at her when she wasn't looking. Long, unblinking stares that made her shift uncomfortably. And he never, ever stopped smiling, even when he was scolded for not finishing homework, even when the family dog growled at him and wouldn't go near his room anymore, even when he sat alone for hours staring out the window at nothing. Always that smile. Jonathan tried bringing it up to his wife, but the words sounded ridiculous out loud. I think our son is wrong. She scolded him for joking about something so serious. He's just growing up. Maybe he's going through a phase. But Jonathan knew. Something was wearing his son's skin. A week later, the nightmares began. Jonathan would wake up in a cold sweat, heart racing after dreaming of something crawling across the ceiling, something with David's face but spider-like limbs and teeth that clicked together like blades. Sometimes, in the dead silence of the night, he'd hear movement. Not footsteps. No, scraping sounds, like something dragging across the walls. And once, just once, he swore he saw something crawl into David's room and close the door behind it. The real terror came one night when his wife nudged him awake, her voice trembling. I heard something in David's room. He bolted up, grabbing the bat he kept beside the bed. The hallway was colder than usual, and the nightlight outside David's room flickered uncertainly. The door creaked open before he touched it. Inside, the room was dark, unnaturally so, like the light itself refused to enter. The moonlight from the window barely illuminated the foot of the bed, but he could hear it, breathing, not soft and rhythmic like a sleeping child. No, this was heavy, wet, guttural. He turned on the light. The bed was empty, the blanket crumpled, the pillow askew. Then he saw the message on the wall, written in something dark, too dark to be ink or paint. He's not yours anymore. A sound came from beneath the bed, a faint whimper. He dropped to his knees, stomach clenching. David was there again, pale, weak, thin. His eyes bloodshot, face streaked with dirt and tears. He reached out a trembling hand. Please, Daddy, he whispered. Help me. It hurts. I can't get out. Jonathan pulled at him, tried to grab his arm, but his hand passed through like mist. The boy dissolved in his grip, his cries echoing, swallowed by the void. Behind him, the door slammed shut. He turned, and the thing stood before him. No longer pretending, its face twisted. The grin split wider than humanly possible. Its limbs were too long, too sharp. The skin shimmered like a mirage, flickering between David and something else. Something with too many eyes. Bones that didn't belong. A mouth that stretched across its chest. You should have checked the closet too, Daddy, it whispered, voice layered like a broken chorus. Jonathan swung the bat, but it passed through the creature. It laughed. The lights burst. Darkness swallowed the room. Jonathan screamed. He woke on the floor of the hallway, head pounding. The room was empty again. David's bed was neatly made. The message on the wall was gone. No trace of blood or dirt, no sign of his son. But he knew. Whatever that thing was, it had taken David and left behind a mask wearing his face. He called priests, psychologists, paranormal experts. None of them stayed long. The priest refused to enter the boy's room. The psychologist muttered something about extreme detachment and psychopathic behavior, then never returned his calls. One medium, an old woman with cloudy eyes and trembling hands, stepped into the house, looked at David once, and immediately collapsed in a seizure. When she came to, she screamed, "That is not a child," and ran, never to be seen again. His wife began to unravel. She heard voices from the attic. She swore she saw things crawling in the shadows. She begged Jonathan to fix it before it was too late. But he didn't know how. He didn't know what it was. David, that thing, began talking to him at night, standing at the foot of their bed, whispering stories about where he'd been. A place beneath places, Daddy, it said, where the children cry and the dark sings to them. When Jonathan tried to confront it, it simply laughed and said, "Too late. You let me in." The final straw came one stormy night. Thunder crashed. Lightning flickered. Jonathan woke to the smell of burning. He found his wife in the kitchen, sobbing. The oven was on. Inside, she'd placed all of David's clothes, his toys, his drawings, everything. "I thought maybe it would end," she cried. "I thought it would take him away. I thought if I burned everything, maybe he'd let go of our son." Jonathan held her as she shook. But deep inside, he knew it was no use. They had let it in, and now it lived with them. On the last night Jonathan saw the real David, he returned once more to that haunted room. The air was thick, heavy. He bent down and whispered to the floor, "Are you still there?" Silence. Then a hand, weak, trembling, reaching out from the darkness beneath the bed. "I'm cold, Daddy," David whispered. "Please." "I want to come home." Jonathan's tears fell freely as he reached for him, but the other hand grabbed his wrist, sharp, burning. The thing yanked him forward. And he saw them. Hundreds of faces beneath the bed. Pale, forgotten, all children, all crying. The last thing he heard before blacking out was the whisper, "Now you're with me too." When neighbors asked about the family later, they said they rarely saw them anymore. The mother eventually disappeared. Some say she wandered into the woods and never returned. Some say they still hear her scream at night. As for David, he still waves at the neighbors from his window. Still with that same grin, wide as a knife's edge. And if you listen closely at night, just beneath his room, you might hear a voice. Soft. Desperate. "Daddy, there's someone on my bed."